Welcome to Seizing Valor, where we discover God's path for manhood, one conversation at a time. I'm Zack.
I'm Josh.
And I'm Joe.
All right, fellas.
Hi, fellas.
Every time we're still here, I'm amazed. Every time we reconvene, it is a blessing. It really is. I mean, it really is a blessing, but at the same time, it's also a surprise.
We are in a committed relationship, and today we're going to be talking about quitting relationships. How ironic is that? It's not our last episode, at least I don't think so, unless we have a massive falling out within the next hour.
Hypocrites.
we just get into a big fight during this podcast.
Have we ever been in a fight before? Not a three-way fight, maybe a two-way fight. Any of us been in a conflict?
I don't think so. I think we've all had like discussions that had emotion behind it, but I wouldn't say like we've had a fight before.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Strong discussions are like, just because you disagree about something or have different views doesn't mean you have to fight about it, which I think a lot of people need to hear that. It's like, just because someone thinks something different than you and you're having a conversation about it, that's not a fight. You know, a fight's when you like wish ill upon the other person or you're like trying to hurt them. If you have different views, that's not the same thing. So everybody listening, if you have friends that disagree with you, you are allowed to.
That can be healthy.
Yeah, you don't have to fight about it.
Yeah, it's okay. Let's all be friends.
Gentlemen, welcome to Fight Club.
You don't talk about Fight Club.
The first rule of Fight Club is that we don't say the first rule because it's talking about Fight Club.
The first rule is we like paradoxes.
Exactly.
Here at Fight Club.
Here at Fight Club, we think hard. We fight hard, but we think even harder.
Even harder. Yeah.
Oh, geez. Well, how was everybody's week?
It was great. I had a really good week. Came back after the horrible trip and just kind of vegged for a couple of days and then got some work done, schoolwork done, did some other podcast stuff. And then I forgot that Claire and I were going to play at this like weekend camp retreat thing for our diocese. And it like completely was like a surprise. Like I completely forgot about it. I received a text from one of the directors and he was like, "So how many days are you staying?" And I was like, What? What is this again? What? And so that was great. So from Thursday to Sunday, I stayed at this camp. We stayed at the seminary. It was an old seminary. Now it's like a retreat center called the Seminary of the Immaculate Conception. It's an amazing building, beautiful in the middle of this place called Lloyd Harbor. And so I stayed there for a while, and I did the music. I stayed overnight, like I was there the whole time. So we would do morning mass, we would do adoration at night. Claire would come in the evenings, and we just had fun, arranged, did games and stuff. I was in charge of a bunch of stuff actually, which was nice. I got to wear the youth ministry cap again because a couple people called out. So I ran like a big event and all this stuff. And so that was really fun. It was very cool. Got a lot of sun. Was outside. Was active. Lots of music. Good prayer and worship fellowship. Had a lot of fun. And then when I got back home, I read the book, "The Road" by Cormac McCarthy. And oh my goodness, fellas, phenomenal. Loved it. Pretty dark, but it had a beautiful message. And it was and I could not put it down. I started it Sunday evening. I read it all day Monday, and then I finished it early Tuesday morning.
That's the way I read books like all the time.
Yeah, I could not
binge the book.
Yeah, and it was phenomenal. I cried. Like it's just this powerful, beautiful story. And yeah, so I recommend it. So if people are looking for a read, it's not a light read. It's not a feel good book, but I mean, the end is a positive message. But it's just a phenomenal story. It puts you in this amazing place. Yeah, so that was my week.
This isn't necessarily my week, but that's where I just came from playing tennis outside, and I might as well have been swimming. Like it is so humid out there right now.
It's nasty today. Yeah.
It's not the heat, hun. It's the humidity.
Oh, I mean, it's no joke. For those who don't live in an area that gets humid, like I know, like in the deserts and stuff, like you don't understand. Like humidity is when it's still hot in the shade. Like you can't hide from the heat. Like it just is so intense. And then like when you play stuff like tennis and you're like on asphalt and everything, it's even hotter.
Yeah,
it's like 5 to 10 degrees harder.
It's rough.
Yeah, it was I had my sweat was like all the way soaked through my shirt. It was a really good workout, had a really good time. But yeah, I could barely lift my legs at the end. It was
Takes
it
a
was
lot
pretty
out of you.
intense. Yes, it does. Even at like 6 o'clock at night is when we started, and it's still like 90 degrees out, which is crazy. Which I know there's probably people who would be listening in like Georgia or something and be like, 90 degrees. It's like 100 degrees here with humidity at 6 o'clock in the evening. But yeah, so that's been pretty active with that type of stuff and playing lots of tennis, pickleball, things like that, just trying to stay active. My weekend though was I mean, it always is kind of the crux of the week, I guess. We had our second young adult event for our group, which was pretty cool. They have a festival for the Sisters of St. Cyril and Methodius, which is a big group of nuns up here. Well, I wouldn't say it's huge, but it's a group of nuns that have their convent and stuff up here. So they host a little festival every year during the summer. So a few of us went to that, and that was pretty fun. All of the food trucks and everything. I mean, that's for the reason everyone goes to stuff, right? It's for the food, for the unhealthy food that they provide you. Where we live, there's I mean, there's lots of Polish food because we have a lot of Polish people in our area. So like pierogies and halishki and all that buttery good stuff. Love me some pierogies, potato pancakes. Oh my goodness. My heart, I'm having heart palpitations just talking about it. But yeah, so that was good. Was able to go there. Talked extensively to the other people that were there with me. Got to know them a little bit better, and that was awesome. Picked up some souvenirs because there's also like they're doing like flea markets, religious items. They had a ukulele band that was playing, which was pretty cool, and there was bingo. Yeah, so
that's a reason I would go
for the bingo.
Oh yeah,
for the disguised gambling, the participation gambling. So, oh my goodness. The only time I feel like I ever won bingo in college was like senior week, and I got like a crock pot. Like I never won like all the years I was there until senior week, and I got a crock pot, which is pretty cool.
I don't think I've ever won bingo. That's great.
I played like maybe 3 or 4 years ago with like some random people from our church, and we played with money. And I won like 100.
Now that is gambling.
Yeah, it was actually gambling, but
wow,
it's okay. Yeah, I won like $150.
That's pretty.
And then I spent it on something. I forget what I spent it on.
Well, that's what money's for. So
I guess so. Yeah, I don't know why I specified I spent it, because that's what you do.
I bought a typewriter actually for $5. I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna help the sisters out. I'm gonna have something to remember this weekend by. And I like to write, like in my spare time. I like write creatively in my spare time. It's one of the things I like to do. And I'm like, you know what? A lot of writers like to use typewriters, so maybe I'll give it a shot. There is one drawback. It has all like the ink and stuff, but the one drawback is that that the typeface is in cursive. So I'm like, okay, well that's a little strange. I'm gonna like try to find print wheels to like change the font or the typeface, but it looks great. Yeah, but it looks really fancy, but it would not be the easiest to read like quickly. So
is it like that SpongeBob
No, not that fancy, unfortunately. But yeah, it still looks like pretty sweet. It'd be nice to write letters on, but maybe not like a book or something. But yeah, it's really fun, and my mom had like to show me how to use it and just go and blast from the past there. Yeah, and other than that same night went to go see Thor: Love and Thunder, which was pretty good. Won't give like an extensive review here or give any spoilers, but I mean, it wasn't as good as Ragnarok, which is what everyone is saying. I mean, Ragnarok, when Taika Waititi like comes out and like throws down Ragnarok, everyone's like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. So now it's like the pressure, the follow-up pressure. It was still a good movie, and it was still funny, and I thought it was a good adventure, but yeah, so it's definitely worth a watch.
Joe, how was your week?
So my week was actually very good, very eventful. For starters, you might notice that I got my haircut today. First off, I feel like an entirely new man. Nice. I reviewed some food with my barber. On Saturday, I actually went to go see Hamilton with my sister and my mother.
Is it playing? It's playing somewhere?
It's off Broadway. I went in totally cold. It was fantastic though. Totally cold. When the Broadway play finally came out, when the musical came out, all the hype was real, like when it came out 2015, 2016, give or take. And I said, eventually I will see it off Broadway, on Broadway. I'll get it because I'm a history guy. Love it. But I want to go in with totally fresh eyes. I've avoided every single song. And do I kind of regret not actually seeing it beforehand? A little bit, because actually they spoke like kind of fast. And I missed like some tidbits, and like I'll get to see it again, no problem. So there's toss-ups. Awesome musical, love the pageantry and the aesthetic of everything. Definitely a sight worth seeing and hearing.
I can appreciate the musical aspect. I think Lin-Manuel Miranda is an incredible like producer, musician, composer, all that stuff, rapper.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I didn't really jive with it that much.
Yeah.
I think for me, it's just kind of the nature of just the theater setting. I don't really like.
Sure. Yeah, I've been a part of that. I've been a part of that too for a few years. What do you mean about like the nature of the theater setting?
I don't know. It just kind of felt kind of, I don't know, drama class-ish. I don't know.
They're using like too much free reign.
Yeah.
Okay, that's entirely fair.
I think so. Yeah.
I would be lying if I said I didn't, have that thought cross my mind.
Right. Yeah, because it's just not this type of stuff. I don't really care to go to like see plays or like or even to see Broadway shows. Like I don't really care that much about that.
There are certain plays that do it for me.
Sure.
Very few.
And it's not the fact that I enjoy musicals, but I think just like the play setting, I'm not really big on. So I saw Hamilton on Disney Plus, like the official one with the original cast. And I didn't watch. I stopped halfway through. Like it's cool, but I'm not really into this, I guess.
Yeah,
that's how I felt.
Would you be more likely to read the Hamilton book?
I don't know, maybe. Yeah. Probably, actually. Yeah.
Apparently it's a big drag, but to each their own. It might be just our cup of tea.
Yeah, who knows.
And then lastly, I played guitar for church on Sunday, which was awesome. Got to prep for this coming weekend. We'll have like certain members out, but it'll still be great time. God will be moving.
Great, Joe.
So we're going to be talking about quitting today. So tell me if anybody who's listening right now has heard this story before. You notice your buddy dating this girl or boy. Notice a girl dating a boy. They date for roughly a year, and they are a great person for sure that they are dating, but they break up for whatever reason. The guy comes to chat with you about the failed relationship. He moans and groans, the usual. A few weeks, months pass in singleness. And then you hear out of the woodwork your buddy is they got back together with this girl. And then maybe, 2 to 3 months later, give or take, they break up again. And, this happens back and forth. They break up several times. And I know for myself, in one case, where a couple got back over a period of 4 years. And for some people, I'm sure, like we know of some other examples who are listening and where it's longer, maybe even decades, who knows? I wish I was kidding about the 4 years. They never saw anybody else during this period. How does this happen? Why would they do that? Let me give one last story before I open it up to you guys. During the market crash of 1929, this guy named Jesse Livermore, he bought these stocks that went down because, as we know of in the stock market crash in October, he started buying all stocks as they were going down, but kept buying. He said, it's going to turn around. It's going to turn around. Just kept on buying. And, as stock prices go, for people who are listening, when it decreases in value, when you buy something at $100 and it goes down to 90, you don't actually lose anything until you sell. This guy, Jesse, he couldn't stop. He loses. The losses kept on getting bigger and bigger. Thought he would recover, and then eventually he was ruined. These stories, the relationship one and the stock market, they sound different, but yet are exactly the same. The flaw in the couple and also Jesse was that was the sunk cost fallacy, as I've heard. People call it like different names, but essentially what it is, they invest time and energy in a relationship that is really not suitable, a situation that is not suitable for them. And this happens all the time. People are reluctant to admit loss.
Well, first of all, I was a finance major in college, and I can't say that the guys, from a financial perspective, that the guy's idea was not, it wasn't terrible, because the idea in stocks is that you want to buy low and sell high. So if you
Yeah.
really, if you really had faith in the stock, it was a good idea to buy more as it kept coming down. Obviously, there's a point where you don't spend all of your money
Yeah.
getting
But
this
by
stock.
1934, the guy was done. Yeah.
Yeah. So like that was his problem, is that he needed to like kind of cut it off somewhere. But like the idea that if he had a faith in the company, obviously if the company was, there's a point where it's like, okay, this isn't coming back. But but we're not talking about that. We're talking about relationships here and the kind of the symbolism behind it.
Yeah.
I understand the idea of like where you're coming from with that, this idea of going back and forth and back and forth, and this idea of going back and forth in a relationship, going in a relationship and out of a relationship, and in a relationship and out of a relationship. I can honestly but reluctantly say that I have had experience with this.
Oh yeah, we all have. Absolutely.
Yeah, I've done this. I have been that guy. I have been that guy that breaks up and then changes his mind, and then changes his mind again, and changes his mind again. So I guess I can kind of speak from the perspective of the flawed thinking of what's in there. And what you say is kind of true. This idea that you already have a connection to this person. I mean, I don't think these aren't, I don't know 100% what I can't recall 100% what my reasons were, but this is maybe like a possibility for, where someone could be coming from, is that it's possible that when you go back out into the dating pool, you get intimidated by that and the unknowns around it, or like as soon as you hit a difficulty, like we were talking about last week, as soon as you hit a challenge, then you kind of shy away from it and go back to what's easy, what you already know, even if it wasn't working. Like you're like, oh, I know this person, we have a connection, we don't really have to do as much work to like rekindle it, like type of thing, even though you have inevitably end up usually running into, well, in the end you have to go one of two ways. You either have to tackle the problems you keep facing to overcome them, or you just need to you need to just walk away from them. But I think that might be one of the reasons that people might keep going back and forth, is they're not willing to kind of completely disconnect themselves, because they want to have that easy option, I guess.
Yeah.
That might sound really cruel and shallow, and in some ways it is, but like this idea, and a lot of the time you might not even realize you're doing it, is just this idea that you want to have that thing in the pot, like you're afraid of the challenge of something else, I guess, is that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, and I think it goes in something that I said last week of just being comfortable and having something be secure, or to feel so you don't have to go that extra mile of stepping out there again, and yeah, so I think that's, yeah.
And the ironic part of it, obviously it's something that's not exactly comfortable, because obviously it was something that was on the rocks, you broke up, but it was familiar, I think, like, is the better term, because it was something that like you've at least gotten your feet wet with it, you know what I mean? Like a lot of people like to go back to the familiar. Very much human
that's
nature.
the thing, is that the further you get from the breakup and the problems you were facing, the more you kind of forget about them, and then the more like you kind of have rose-colored glasses, or you think like, oh, this time will be different, like this time we'll figure it out, and then you inevitably, or like this time we won't have that problem again, and inevitably you just keep running into the same spot, like inevitably you keep hitting the same wall. It's not going to go away, like as I said, you either got to get over it or you got to walk away from it. Like
a few weeks or months pass by, you don't remember the bad times as much, you remember the good times, that rose-colored glasses you were mentioning, the times you went on trips together, the times you laughed while watching TV hysterically. You forget the bad, and finally, like, if push comes to shove, and you're thinking of the familiar, you pick up the phone and call her, and the cycle continues.
I think one of the problems then too, this idea of like coming in and out and in and out and in and out, is the idea that maybe sometimes these people maybe don't give as much thought, or they quit too easily initially. Like the first breakup is walked into too quickly or too easily. This idea is that they didn't maybe take enough time to like figure out whether they should once again actually tackle the problem, or like put it away once and for all. And because they were just so quick to step away, it's easy kind of to step back. It's like this idea is that they didn't really firmly decide. They just kind of like stepped away. They didn't like think enough about, do I want to stay or do I want to go? They kind of like go, but they don't really. They kind of like go, but only half go. And so now they're like stuck in this middle, so that where they can feel like they can come, and like the more they come and go, the more they come and go, the more they feel like they can do that. And just, I don't know. It's because people aren't making their yes and no mean what they mean. They mean like yes, maybe, or no, maybe. And
instead of a clean break. Yeah.
And especially if you've decided like that, like something is, I think in any situation, whether you decide to go forward or you decide to step away, first of all, you need to think about it a lot and like really make a good decision, not a snap one, just like what you're feeling or whatever. Just like think a lot about it, talk to the other person about it, for goodness sake, and like commit to whatever you decide. Like either step away and just step away, or you decide to go forward and go forward. Like that's the thing. I think a lot of people don't commit to like what they decide. They always like waffle. They like, what if I had done the other thing? And that's unfair to yourself. That's unfair to definitely to the other person. Like if you're going to pick something, you need to stick with it. And once again, I say this to myself as much as anybody, because I am guilty of this thing. But like, I think that was my problem. I just didn't firmly say yes or no, and then just stick with that and move on. You people maybe just like bathe too much in the middle ground, in the non-committalness, or I've had a fancier word in my head now, I can't think of it.
Yeah, and I think there's this level of, now I'm not talking directly to you, Zach, or to your scenario. I'm just saying in general, like the populace, because I don't think you're this way, but I think there's a level of selfishness in relationships nowadays, to where there's this kind of inward focus to say like I'm supposed to be experiencing emotion, or I'm supposed to be experiencing good things, or whatever. And then the second there's negativity, and then one person experiences any form of negativity, they just tend to, well, this is bad for me, so I'm leaving, as opposed to looking towards the other and then trying to do what's best for them to make something work, if it's worth, fixing or adjusting or whatever it may be. So I feel like there's this kind of this inward focus and attention nowadays, like, oh, like if I'm not feeling okay, then this isn't good. When in the reality is like relationships go up, they have ups and downs constantly, and you're not always going to feel amazing. But if it's I don't know. So what do you guys think about that idea?
Oh no, I totally agree. I totally agree with that. And whether we realize it or not, I mean, some people do that consciously, some people do that unconsciously, but it is that idea that people think too much about, is this feeling right, or is this not saying that you should just pick anyone out there and just say, I mean, that one's good enough, and I'll just commit.
Have standards.
Like whether you're a guy picking a girl or a girl picking a guy, like just saying, oh, that one will work, and I'll just make it work the entire time. I mean, there should be a level of the person's different compared to like other people, or like you have a really strong connection. Like if you never have a strong connection ever at any time, then that's probably not good for a relationship. But like, obviously if you usually have a really strong connection and then just sometimes it's not strong, you can't be just like, oh, the connection's gone and it's time to leave. Or like, because Josh said, I mean, like, especially if you end up with this person for a long time or get married, like there is inevitably going to be up and down, like inevitably. Like it's not a like, oh, only like perfect couples never have downs. It's like, no, every couple has downs. Yeah. But the hope is, like, I used to be an economics major. And so the way they taught us about the economy, that was before I was finance. So here we go. We're bringing this back in, is that the economy goes up and down. Like, it has like bull and bear markets. It's like it has peaks and has valleys. But the hope is that as it's doing those peaks and valleys, it's on the whole, like going up. Like, so that if you drew like an average line through it, it's still up. But that doesn't mean that it's always at the high point or always at the low point. Like so you're hoping that your lows aren't as low as they were before, and your highs maybe a little high. Yeah. So like you have highs and lows, but on the average, the goal is to go up. So like the economy is not just constantly just going upwards, but so that's maybe what a relationship life should be like. It's like the hope is that you're maybe, once again, it's not a perfectly straight average line, but on the hope is that on average you're going up and you're having a stronger connection, a stronger relationship. But that doesn't mean that it's always amazing.
Yeah, exactly. And I think we really need to lose this concept of like a perfect relationship, because that just it doesn't exist. It does not exist. And so to go into a relationship thinking, oh, we haven't had our we have not argued yet, or we haven't fought yet, or whatever, like just know that eventually it's gonna come. Like it's gonna come, and that's okay. And you have to just, if it, I don't know. I lost my train of thought, but yeah.
Well, it's those things that make you stronger. It's like when you get past that.
Yeah. And I think for me, just from my own experience, like, I've known my wife for 8 years. We were friends for a year and a half, and then we were engaged for a year and a half, and then now we've been married for 5 years this August. And I can say that, like, we've had a lot of ups and downs. We've had some serious arguments and discussions and brought some things out to the light. But it's really important for us to like know that relationships are meant to like sanctify, they're meant to purify, and especially like your vocation. And obviously my vocation is to marriage. And so like, I can't quit that. It's until death do you part. And what it's meant to do is it brings all of the gunk and dirt to like the surface. You think about like a lake or something, like a body of water. And like marriage is just like, it skims the top and it cleans it up constantly, so that you're like becoming a better human being, a better person as you're living life bonded to one another. So and so you should never quit that. Like it's for your betterment. It's exactly what you're saying. So you're stronger, you're better, it's like a purification of your person. It really is. So that's why it's so necessary to stick through and to stay committed and to continue.
And I mean, every time you overcome a challenge, that it's learning a lesson, so that every time you overcome a challenge, you learn how to overcome a challenge better the next time, or like every time you fight, you almost learn how to fight better, if that makes sense, or how to fight in cooperation, or how to argue or talk in cooperation more, or be more respectful. Like you figure it out as you go along. And every time, and the worse, I don't know, I want to, like, the harder it is, the better you become after it. So I'm going to share something I heard from somebody. I was at like an event of some kind, and this guy was talking about, I don't know, some podcast that he was listening to, and this guy, or a book he was reading or something, and he posited this theory. And I'm not going to say I completely believe in this theory, but I understand where the logic's going. He said that dating culture is what has led to the rise in divorce, because the idea is when you do dating, it's like at the small, you're like, looking at all these people, and you're like, it's at the smallest inconvenience thing. It's like, oh, this person's like this, so I don't want that, so I'll leave. Or
the newest trend, he's a 9, but he wears flip-flops or something. Oh, he's a 3. Like just the smallest inconvenience type thing. That's what I'm seeing as the newest trend on TikTok or whatever. It's like that type of thing. I know what you mean.
Once there's like something that you might not, I guess, like, or there's something that's an inconvenience, you step away.
Oh yeah.
So that when you bring that into marriage eventually, then you kind of have a little bit of that same mindset. And if you don't have something, now obviously I'm saying, well, like, people who see the value of marriage and like the sanctity of marriage, you have a reason to keep going as compared to when you're dating.
Right.
People who don't have that background, though, might see it the same way and just be like, oh, like marriage is just like a formality. When you don't see the holiness of marriage and the purpose of marriage, then you just treat it like it's just like a longer date, and then you just decide, like, if it doesn't work out, then you get divorced.
And that's something I was going to bring up too, is just how we forgot the purpose of everything. Like we forgot the purpose of relationships is to get married and to live forever with someone. Like that whole concept is just thrown out the window. I mean, today it's just all about physical intimacy, and that's it. Like that's where the bar ends, is like, how far can I get with someone, and then just throw it away.
And to top it all off, like the main reason to have a marriage is to
have a family
and to bring that new generation into the world and instill these principles onto them.
Exactly. Morality, teach them about all good things and all that. Like that's what we're meant for. Like that's a lot of our purpose, if we're intended for the married life. And we forgot that. And so because of that, as soon as you get rid of the reason for why are we dating to begin with, then of course, I'm going to throw this person away. Like, it doesn't matter.
We've talked about those mountaintops before. You lost your mountaintop when you already said like that you're in this non-committal type of mentality.
But this idea is that when people forget the sanctity of marriage, then once again, it doesn't have any significance. So that's why people date for years and years and years and years and never get married, because there's no difference to it.
Doesn't matter.
But but as you said, Josh, I mean, like the purpose of marriage, even beyond just having kids, is like to sanctify both of you. I mean, there's grace that is delivered. It's a sacrament. So there's grace that's delivered to the two of you when you get married. And every day you wake up and you're like, we're still married and we vow to keep loving each other. You keep receiving grace, Yeah.
And the goal is heaven for all of us, right? The goal is heaven. And so regardless of if you're a priest, a nun, or religious, like you're intended to be in those locations to like get to heaven. And the Lord knows that for you. And so he's going to put you in those positions and in those places to get you there and to give you the graces, as long as you're listening to him and seeking his will. And you're not meant to just have one night stands. Like, that's not what you're made for. You're made for something so much more in relationships. You're not meant to just have friendships that are a little bit more physical and then move on to the next one. Like, no, like you're meant to get to heaven. Dang it.
And that's insulting the other person too when you treat them like that. That you're just a pleasure center. You're like a video game or
making them less
a
than
dessert
human.
or something like something else that you just get pleasure for or entertainment from. Like, that's not treating them like a human being.
Not at all.
So
it destroys everything. It destroys everything.
Or as a social crutch. That's like, some people do that too. They use their significant other as a social crutch because they don't want to do the work to either have more friends, or they like to, they'll hang out with their significant other all the time because they don't want that social pressure, or they don't want to go try things alone.
I think purpose is everything. Purpose is everything. And this is something that I've really been reflecting on probably this whole year, is like the nature of purpose, like your purpose. And if you don't have a purpose, especially if you're kind of a nihilistic, Gnostic type of person, it's so hard to be happy. It is so hard to be joyful, to be satisfied, to experience life on the bright side. You know what I mean? And it's just so important for us to remember like why we're doing things, like why we are doing things, and have that goal and that purpose in mind. Because if we don't have that, then we're just waffling. We're wanderers who have no goal, no place, no location. And we all have to realize that we all have that. We all have purpose, and we all have value and worth. And it's so important for us to always remember that in every circumstance, every aspect of our lives, so that we can continue to keep moving forward and trekking along this path, and to know that it's not all for naught. And so if you're that person and you're listening, which I don't know if you are or not, but and you think that there's no purpose, or that you are worthless, or any of that, like, that's not true. You are beautiful. You're made in the image and likeness of a God who created you and formed you out of the elements of the earth for a purpose and a goal, to seek him, to seek his face and his joy here on earth. And so do that, and do it well. And if you need help, we're here for you. I'm here for you.
I think we should clarify is what we're saying here is that, whatever the first relationship is in your life, or the one you're in now, that like, it's not necessarily that you should never quit. It's like, oh, you need to commit to that like forever and ever and ever. Like, if you are really in an unhealthy relationship, or like you are really in a relationship that is not good for you, or maybe even for the other person, like, that is okay to quit. You actually probably should quit. Sometimes it's harder for people in those relationships to quit, that when they should. Like, if someone's like in an abusive relationship or something like that, obviously do not stay in that just for the sake of toughing it out. Like, if you are being hurt by something, like, you need to, like, that is something you need to walk away from. That is something serious that you should walk away from. Now, just like you disagree with someone about something that's more minor, or like, I don't know, you have one small fight, that's like in a relationship, that's one thing that you shouldn't let that destroy a relationship completely. But like, if there is something and like prolonged and that's just not good, between the two of you, like it is okay to walk away.
If it is miserable, like you're more likely to be determined to like get out of that situation. But if it feels like not overtly miserable, like kind of just like, oh, they're like these things that I tolerate. But, once you identify that you're in this rut, that doesn't feel miserable enough, obviously it's not for you. You wake up every single morning, God breathes that breath into your lungs, and that you wake up ready to put on the armor of God, and that you have this moment to think that this is not a situation for me anymore.
Talk to God. What does God want? Now, like on one end, like you shouldn't be with someone that is not bringing out the best version of you, or you're not bringing out the best version of them. Like if you guys aren't making yourselves better through each other, then that's probably not meant to be. That's not, obviously your vocation, as Josh was saying, was married people eventually is to bring out the best in each other, get each other to heaven. If that's already not happening and you're actually furthering yourselves, then that's probably not a relationship you should be in.
Sure.
God doesn't want us to settle in that way. God has a plan for every one of us. Now, I don't necessarily think we all have soulmates, but there are people that are better for us and then people that are not. So just one thing is be more discerning in when to enter a relationship. Don't enter relationships so quickly. Like figure out, yeah, like don't close yourself off, but like be careful, be slow to start, really get to know these people before you really develop an intimate connection. Our world is impatient. We want everything now, but that's not usually the best way to go about it. Be discerning in starting, and then also be discerning in ending. Be discerning, like really think about it, really bring it to God and let him guide you as to, is this something you should stay or something you should go? God doesn't always say stay, and he doesn't always say go. He's, but you have to listen and like figure out like what's happening. Look at the fruits of what's happening. If the fruits of your relationship are not good, it's probably not meant to be. But if the fruits of your relationship are good, but just haven't been born in a little bit, that's
work at it.
So
yeah. Well said, Zach.
And just one little quick thing. I think also too, it's important for us to remember like how temptation affects us, because sometimes you may feel and think you may want to do something when in reality you're being pushed by a force that the other party. So it's always very important to discern and to think and to really lean into God and to make sure that what you're hearing, feeling, and experiencing like is of God. And is truly what he wants.
And discerning can be something that we can talk further
about it.
A separate podcast, because that is a heavy topic. But yeah, just really think about like what's like, take a step back, really look at your situation.
And ask God, what is your purpose for me?
So we're not standing here saying either always stay or always go. Just, stay for the right reasons, go for the right reasons, and be very thoughtful about both of those things.
Okay.
I guess.
Just remember the goal. Remember your purpose.
Please feel free to share our podcast with those who especially if there's someone you really think needs to either hear a specific episode or just the whole podcast in general. So we are on Spotify and YouTube currently. Click the like, click the subscribe. Do whatever you do on Spotify. I don't remember at the moment.
Smash the melee button.
Yes. Follow us on social media. On our Instagram at Seizing Valor, and interact with us, talk with us. Feel free to comment on our videos and everything. But if you really have like a deep personal question or a concern or just something you want to talk about, please feel free to email us. Like we would love to interact with you and be able to answer any of your questions. And also send us your prayer intentions or just any well wishes. They're always appreciated too. So that's seizingvalor@gmail.com. Go out and have a wonderful day. Whenever you're listening to this, go out and have an amazing day or rest of your day or whatever.
Seize valor, people.
You're beautiful and you are loved by a God who created you. Let's pray.
Heavenly Father, thank you for today. Thank you for the blessings that you've given all of us here. I just pray that you continue to fill our hearts with your goodness, with your light, with your love, and with those graces. I pray that we can receive that grace to overcome all difficulties that we face in our lives, the difficulties with jobs and careers, dreams, personal goals, and especially with relationships. Let us always understand the purpose that you have for us in our lives, and that the ultimate goal is for eternal communion, right? To be with you forever, to receive that beatific vision in your kingdom, Lord. So continue to work within us. Let us understand that, and to make that the single mountaintop that we're trying to achieve more so than anything. And let all of our decisions be within that umbrella, Lord. And then give us the graces to do all those things. Help us discern and understand your longing for us, and that we can always accomplish your will in our lives, Lord. Thank you for all that you've done. We love you. In the most precious and holy name we pray. Amen.
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 Thank you all, everyone, for attending, and we can't wait to see you next time.